Hi, hello. Welcome to the episode of Isaiah's Newsstand. It's your host, Isaiah Edwards. The date is April the 22nd, 2026. Hopefully this episode finds you well, in good spirits and high hopes. As for me, I'm doing pretty good. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day to ya. Hopefully you humped and didn't get humped. Unless that's what you're into, then by all means, have at it. My day was good. It was positive. It was solid. We got up. We had a good night's rest. Got to work. Work was good. Steady pace. We got in. We got out. No complaints. We went to the gym. Gym was busy. It was definitely busy. And I did get lucky, though. And I was able to get on a Smith machine. But when I was going to do squats, middle of doing one of my sets, I just felt my left leg, like in my quad area, it feels like a cramp, felt like a cramp. And it's just kind of been hurting ever since. And so, that's fun, and also in general, I feel like my body, something I was alluding to yesterday, my body has just kind of been back to that old soreness from last year when I was really like going for it. Like, I'm like, man, my arms, they are activated. And there's actually a little bit of irony to today because I was feeling a type of way until I hit the stairs for the first thing of the day at work, where I was like, man, like I feel it in my arms, I can feel it in my chest a bit, but I'm not feeling it in my legs. I must not have been going as hard yesterday, and maybe I should make up for it. Then I took my first flight of stairs at work, and I was like, maybe I should shut up. And anyway, coming back to the gym mid squat, and I'm just like, nope, I'm definitely working my legs because this doesn't normally happen, in the middle of a little squat like I do. But, I think the extra volume is doing something. I don't know. But hey, we did get through the workout. The Stairmaster was not a fun 15 minutes, but we moved. And yeah, we got out of the gym. We came home, had our stretch, had our snack, did a little bit of research, and here we are, ready to yap it up, ready to talk about some news. So let's go ahead and do our startup and let's get into it. The weather it's been nice. We're back on the cooler end of spring, I feel, but we're not freezing, and I'll take that. It's nice to be in a situation where I get to wear a hoodie and some hoochie daddies at work. You know what I mean? Like, that's a vibe. All right. Ooh. I guess I should have some time in here for an Iran war update, but I don't know. I heard they fired at some Iran fired at some container ships or something to that effect, some kind of ships that they fired upon. I didn't even bother to click at it. I'm like, yeah, man, did anybody die? Did you die though? I'll get to it later or whatever. So there you go. We'll call it at least somewhat covered there. Okay. Anywho, let's go to PBS. PBS News. Man, I miss being a kid and just watching like Arthur on the PBS channel. Those were the days. Anyway, U.S. officials killed in Mexico after anti-drug operation were working for CIA. Associated Press sources say. Now, for a second, when I initially had read some headlines from the story, I thought this was from the shooting from the Tehuacan situation, and nope, it's a completely other, different thing. Excuse me, I had a little burp there. Ooh, came in twos. All right. 2 U.S. officials killed in a vehicle crash as they returned from destroying a clandestine drug lab in northern Mexico over the weekend were working for the CIA, according to a U.S. official and 2 other people familiar with the matter. Two Mexican investigators were killed in the crash, which Mexican authorities said occurred while the convoy was returning from an operation to destroy drug labs of criminal groups. There have been discrepancies in the public accounts of what happened from U.S. and Mexican officials, which experts say underscores heightened American involvement in security operations in Mexico and across the region. The CIA's involvement was confirmed Tuesday by the three with knowledge of the crash, who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss sensitive intelligence matters. That the U.S. officials worked for the CIA was reported earlier by the Washington Post. It comes after days of contradictions from Mexican and U.S. authorities about the role that American officials played in an operation to bust a narco laboratory in northern Chihuahua state. The lack of clarity from authorities reignited a debate over the extent of U.S. involvement in Mexico's security operations as Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum faces extreme pressure from U.S. President Donald Trump's administration to crack down on cartels. Trump has taken a more aggressive stance toward Latin America than any leader in recent U.S. history, capturing Venezuela's president, blockading oil shipments to Cuba, and launching joint military operations in Ecuador, a country also marked by criminal violence. Now, I will say here, just to kind of make this pause, because, Ecuador is mentioned. Ecuador, I feel like, has been way more, open to say, we want to work with America. We want their involvement. And, essentially clamoring for it. They're like, okay, you got it. We'll help you on some kind of intel, joint operations, whatever. I think Scheinbaum's in a bit of a different pickle because she does not want to work with Donald Trump, at least openly. She's, is trying to kind of toe this line where it's like, hey, I got the devil at my door. And if he wants to make a deal where we essentially, we'll work with them. We don't really have a choice, but we'll work with them and we don't have to really make a lot of noise about it. Well, then, okay, then we're getting a good crackdown. We're getting a little bit more law and order situation, and I get to kind of wash my hands of it. But when these dust-ups happen, when, we actually start making the news, the headlines and things like that, well, they go, well, wait a second. The U.S. is clearly involved here. The U.S. is clearly operating here to some capacity. What the fuck is up? And then Scheinbaum kind of wants to be like, well, I don't really, hey, I'm happy to see Mexico do blah, blah, yada, yada. And then just try to move on from the conversation. I think that can only work so much. And I think you're seeing here where it's like, people are like, ¿por qué? What's going on? Anyway, let's keep reading. Trump has repeatedly offered to take action on Mexican cartels, an intervention that Scheinbaum has said was unnecessary. But yeah, here we are, working to potentially stop what? Cartels? Some kind of, crime involvement here, crime crackdown. The CIA officers were initially identified as U.S. Embassy personnel by U.S. Ambassador to Mexico, Ron Johnson, who is himself a former CIA employee. Man, one CIA, always CIA. That's what I fucking say. The U.S. Embassy declined Monday to identify the individuals or which entity of the U.S. government they worked for, but said the officials were supporting Chihuahua state authorities' efforts to combat cartel operations. The Embassy, State Department, and CIA declined to comment on the identities of reports of CIA involvement in the operation. Local Mexican officials originally claimed they were working with the U.S. on an operation, but later walked those comments back after the effort came under scrutiny from Scheinbaum. So that's kind of what we're saying here, where it's like, hey, yeah, we were working hand in hand, and we had no problem saying that until we were told, oh, you can't say that. You shouldn't fucking say that. And so here we are. So yeah, I mean, that's more or less the story. That's my take, kind of wrapped in there too. I'll keep you updated if there's any more details, any more information. But I wanted to start off with that story. I thought it was, pretty interesting and, kind of highlights, Scheinbaum's kind of rock and hard place situation that she's in there a little bit. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on to our next story. This is from the Associated Press. Southern Poverty Law Center charged with defrauding donors with payments to extremist informants. Well, let me take a little quick water break. Now, once I caught wind of the story yesterday, and I was like, ooh, this is a very interesting story, but I know I'm going to need a little bit more context. I'm going to need someone smarter than me, kind of explain this, or at least just get more news context, whatever, information. And I'm glad I did. Because I don't know. We'll get to my take on this as we go. Let's go ahead and dive in. The Southern Poverty Law Center, or SPLC, was indicted Tuesday on federal fraud charges alleging it improperly raised millions of dollars to secretly pay leaders of the Ku Klux Klan and other hate groups for inside information, acting Attorney General Todd Blanche said. The Justice Department alleges the civil rights group defrauded donors by using their money to fund the very extremism it claimed to be fighting, with more than $3 million paid to informants through a now defunct program to infiltrate white supremacist and other extremist groups. Prosecutors allege some of the money was used by extremists to carry out other crimes, but court papers did not include specific examples. Now, I feel like you touched the cream of this story, and you're like, ooh, that's very bad. That seems very suspicious. That seems very, fucked up, But then, once again, I think you definitely, the more you read, the more you go, oh, wait a second. Why are we really going after, the SPLC here? But yeah, let's keep digging. The SPLC was not dismantling these groups. It was instead manufacturing the extremism it purports to oppose by paying sources to stoke racial hatred, Blanche said. The civil rights group faces charges of wire fraud, bank fraud, and conspiracy to commit money laundering. The case brought in the federal court in Alabama, where the organization is based. The indictment came shortly after the SPLC revealed the existence of a criminal investigation into its disbanded informant program to gather intelligence on extremist group activities. The group said the program was used to monitor threats of violence, and the information was often shared with local and federal law enforcement. So essentially, they were doing something that law enforcement more or less does on its own. And you could say, okay, well, they were going rogue about it. It's not something you could do. Well, if that's the case, then why were they allowed to work with local and federal law enforcement until I imagine the Trump 1 administration starts snooping around and saying, oh, this is a problem, this is bad? You know what I'm saying? It doesn't add up to me that this is actually a problem, and it was actually how the Trump administration is trying to say this, how the DOJ is trying to say this now, where it just looks like they were doing something that was saying, hey, we're using these informants for a just cause in a reasonable way, and we are going to get information that is going to stop shit like terrorist fucking activity, domestic terrorist fucking activity, essentially doing the goddamn FBI's job for them. And all of a sudden it's like, nope, actually, you guys are the problem. Actually, we're digging into you guys for the thing you guys are trying to stop. So this feels like a very clever tactic by the DOJ to try to make something move for, good old daddy Donald Trump. Because that's really all what these optics are for, is you got to roll some heads. You got to take out some fucking enemies. And the SPLC is considered an enemy to, conservatives, Republicans, MAGA movement, Donald Trump. Everyone's like, ew, we hate this shit. We would love for this shit to be gone. You know what I mean? To at the very least take a crippling hit in any way, shape, or form. So I think this is where that's coming from. But yeah, we can keep going. I want to read actually pretty much most of this article, I think. The SPLC said it will vigorously defend ourselves, our staff, and our work against what it described as false allegations. The group said its informant program saved lives. Taking on violent hate and extremist groups is among the most dangerous work there is, and we believe it is also among the most important work we do, Interim CEO and President Brian Fair said in a statement. The actions by the DOJ will not shake our resolve to fight for justice and ensure the promise of the civil rights movement becomes a reality for all. The Justice Department alleges the SPLC made false statements to banks in order to set up accounts used to funnel money to informants. The group created bank accounts for fictitious entities such as Fox Photography and Rare Books Warehouse that were used to send money from donors to informants in a scheme to conceal the money's actual purpose, the indictment alleges. Now, this is something right here that I could see is okay, legally, this could be probably viewed as fucked up and criminal. So therefore it's I can see how you've looked at this shit and you've really done your homework and you say, yeah, you might be doing something noble here, but what you are doing actually is our narrative, and you are doing illegal things along the way to accomplish said narrative. And it's like, well, I don't know, I guess we have to see how that holds up in court. Let's see. They're required to, under the law associated with a nonprofit, to have certain transparency and honesty in what they're telling donors they're going to spend money on, and what their mission statement is, and what they're raising money doing, Blanche said. They have to tell them that they're funding undercover operations. They have to tell them about the informants. Which, that seems weird. Let's see here. The indictment includes details on at least 9 unnamed informants were paid by the SPLC through a secret program that prosecutors say began in the 1980s. Within the SPLC, they were known as field sources, or the Fs, according to the indictment. One informant was paid more than $1 million between 2014 and 2023 while affiliated with a neo-Nazi national alliance, the indictment said. Prosecutors say another informant was a member of the online leadership group chat that planned the 2017 White Nationalists Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. The informant attended the rally at the direction of the SPLC, according to the indictment, and helped coordinate transportation for several others. That person was allegedly paid more than $270,000 between 2015 and 2013. And so I can see how you can spend this, how you can view this even, to say, wait, so you guys funded this person to go to this and do like hateful things. Like, once again, if you are someone who's donating to this, it's like, well, maybe I didn't want my dollars to go to that. I thought you guys were just doing legal stuff. So, hey, understandable. I can see that angle, you know? So there you go. That's like, once again, why I did want to read this. Because obviously I have my take where I stand on it. But I can see, once again, how, the DOJ, could have a case here. And maybe that there is something that they can get here in terms of a conviction, which I'm sure they are eager to get. Let's see here. The SPLC said the program was kept quiet to protect the safety of informants. When we began working with informants, we were living in the shadow of the height of the civil rights movement, which had seen bombings at churches, state-sponsored violence against demonstrators, and murders of activists that went unanswered by the justice system. Fair said. There is no question that what we learned from informants saved lives. Also, it's worth noting that it's not like really the temperature has gone down. Like, let's be real. People want to act like, okay, we're so far removed from that time in life. Like, no, people are only more extreme and have easier ways to, gather, organize, and, execute fucking shit. So, good, at least someone's out here trying to do fucking something. Sorry, I had to hit the H2O. A lot of yapping. The SPLC, which is based in Montgomery, Alabama, was founded in 1971 and used civil litigation to fight white supremacist groups. The nonprofit has become a popular target among Republicans who see it as overly leftist and partisan. The investigation could add to concerns that Trump's Republican administration is using the Justice Department to go after conservative opponents and his critics. It follows a number of other investigations into Trump's foes that have raised questions about whether the law enforcement agency has been turned into a political weapon. I wonder if it has or hasn't. The SPLC has faced intense criticism from conservatives who have accused it of unfairly maligning right-wing organizations as extremist groups because of their viewpoints. The Center regularly condemns Trump's rhetoric and policies around voting rights, immigration, and other issues, which we will be getting to voter rights, actually, in this article, or in this episode. The center came under fresh scrutiny after the assassination last year of conservative activist Charlie Kirk brought renewed attention to its characterization of the group that Kirk founded and led. The center included a section on that group, Turning Point USA, in a report titled The Year in Hate and Extremism 2024 that described the group as a case study of the hard right in 2024. Oh man, that's so defamatory. That's so fucked up that they would do that. FBI Director Kash Patel said last year that the agency was severing its relationship with the center, which had long provided law enforcement with research on hate crime and domestic extremism. Patel said the center had turned into a partisan smear machine. I wonder at what point was he saying that happened, when it was stopped being about, civil rights and just that. I'm sure he could point it out, but okay. Patel, I read that part. And he accused it of defaming mainstream Americans with its hate map that documents alleged anti-government and hate groups inside the United States. Excuse me. Got a little bit of the hiccup. Anyway, we will leave the story there. I'll come back with any updates as I get them. Let's go to West Virginia. Once again, from the Associated Press. See if I got a burp or not. A chemical leak at West Virginia plant kills 2 people and sends 30 more to hospitals, officials say. A chemical leak at a West Virginia silver recovery business on Wednesday killed 2 people and sent about 30 others to hospitals, including 1 in serious condition, authorities said. The leak occurred at the Catalyst Refiners plant in Institute as workers were preparing to shut down at least part of the facility. Kanawha County Commission Emergency Management Director C.W. Sigmund said. That's a tongue twister. A chemical gas reaction occurred at the plant involving nitric acid and another substance, Sigmund said at a news briefing. He added that there was a violent reaction of the chemicals and it instantaneously overreacted. Me when I'm hungry. Let's see. Starting or ending a chemical reaction are the most dangerous times, Sigmund said. The chemical reaction that was believed to have occurred during a cleaning process produced toxic hydrogen sulfide, Kanawha County Commission President Ben Salango said. Among the injured were 7 ambulance workers responding to the leak, officials said. Other people were taken to the hospital in private cars or even in one case a garbage truck, Sigmund said. Morrissey said 1 person was in serious condition. Vandalia Health Charleston Area Medical Center, one of several hospitals in the area, was treating multiple patients, some brought by ambulance, while members of the community were arriving Wednesday afternoon asking to be checked, hospital spokesman Dale DeWitt said. Dude, that's just gotta feel so scary. I know we had, the East Palestine thing in Ohio, some years back, but that was still farther away. But in a moment where it's in your town, a building near you, whatever, that shit's chemical. That shit's in the air, and you're just like, oh my god, am I fucked up? Am I gonna die? Especially if you actually wind up feeling different. Oh, how fucked up am I? Oh my god. So, Witt said patients were experiencing respiratory symptoms, including cough, shortness of breath, sore throat, and itchy eyes. They were being evaluated in the emergency room. Let's see here. A shelter-in-place order was issued for the surrounding areas and lifted more than 5 hours later. Officials said all the deaths occurred on the plant site. You had to get really close to the facility to smell it, Sigmund said, which, I don't know. That is less reassuring to me when we're talking about someone who's involved in, taking care of the situation. I'll put taking care of it in some quotations there. Especially in a situation where we know some, people have died. So it's oh, okay, I guess. The leak required a large-scale decontamination operation in which people had to remove their clothes and be sprayed down, authorities said. Morrissey said it's believed the local air quality and water supply were unaffected. Okay, they do tend to be saying that shit. Hey, everything's okay. Don't worry, you're fine. It's all good. Come outside. Catalyst Refiners works to remove silver from what remains of chemical processes. Ames, I think, is it Ames or Ames? We're gonna say Ames. Ames Goldsmith Corporation or Gold Corp. Gold. Well, you know what I mean. The owner of Catalyst Refiners said it is saddened by the deaths, and its thoughts were with all those impacted by their families. Let's see here. Ames Goldsmith promised to work with local, state, and federal officials as they investigate the leak. Federal Occupational Safety and Health Administration has opened an investigation into what happened, a spokesperson said, adding that the agency has 6 months to complete its examination. So yeah, we'll leave the story there for now. If we get to any more details about what caused this, if there's any more aftermath, anything like that, then we will be back to West Virginia for sure. But we're gonna head out to Virginia. We actually gotta talk some politics. We gotta talk about some redistricting. So fun. I love gerrymandering. It's my favorite lizard. No, that was a dumb, not funny joke. It didn't really make sense. That's okay. Last break time. You see, gerrymander sounds like salamander, and that's like a lizard. Yeah, that's the bit. Ugh. Oh. All right. From The Guardian. Virginia voters approve new congressional maps in blow to Trump. They're blowing Trump. Sorry. Oh. Voters in Virginia on Tuesday approved new congressional maps intended to boost Democrats' chances of retaking the House of Representatives in the latest blow to Donald Trump's effort to use mid-decade redistricting to preserve his control of Congress. The tit-for-tat redistricting battle began last year after Trump pressed Texas's Republican-controlled legislature to redraw the state's congressional maps in an effort to oust as many as 5 Democratic House lawmakers in the November midterm elections. Now, I love this because he was adamantly pushing for this, something that, in my opinion, in my mind, is tantamount to putting your hands on the scale and trying to, like, affect a vote. Like, saying, hey, we're going to alter the rules. We're going to alter the ley lines, the boundary lines of the state so that we have more people and you guys just have less, because that's how the voting is just going to go down. And that's democratic. That's fine. That's A-okay. But, fast forward here, Virginia winds up saying no in a very close vote. I think it's like 51 to, whatever the remainder is. I can't count right now. They voted in favor of actually doing the redistricting. And he's saying, this is a travesty of justice. This is a rigged thing. Like he's already ringing the bell. And I hate that about Donald Trump. It's definitely one of my lesser, it's one of my things. There's so much to hate about the man. What can I say? But in just a petty sense, like, why is he always a sore winner or a loser about shit? Like, he has to complain. He has to whine. He has to cry about it for some reason. There has to be a level of high drama about it. It's annoying as fuck to me. Anyway, I know he does so much shit, but that sometimes just takes the cake for me, man. Like, shut the fuck up. Why do we have to read this truth? California voters retaliated by approving new maps that could flip 5 Republican-held seats in Virginia. Abigail Spanberger, the newly elected Democratic governor, backed an effort to redraw her state's maps following her January inauguration. Tuesday's referendum could help Democrats win 4 additional House seats in November's midterm elections. And I love the Republicans in the state. They're like, man, that's so messed up of her to, like, get in and then, like, pivot to being, like, leftist. You're, like, being radical like this. It's like, this is literally what our president is asking, like, every Republican state to do. This is a Democratic governor. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, shut up. Stop crying over not, like, and essentially I kind of do feel like it is crying over nothing potentially, because there's still a grand balance happening here. I don't know every state of play. I think Ohio is actually on the block here, and I think that they're going to be, probably leaning to pack in somehow more Republicans. Oh, great. Love that. I love it here. I mean, at the end of the day, this is probably going to wind up being a net neutral thing. And, Trump is just crying over something that he put into motion, and he's just not getting the actual outcome he wants. And also, it's very funny because each and every one of these times, really, I think the only thing that you really get to pull out of it is a litmus test about how people are feeling in terms of Republicans, Democrats. And you're like, yeah, no, Republicans are really stinking the bed right now. I can't afford anything, and we're at war for fucking what? I think these are things that are weighing very heavily on people's minds. And so when they go into these situations where they might be a swing state, they might lean one way or another, and they go, well, actually, yeah, no, I want to see some change because this is terrible right now. Things are shitty right now. So yeah, it could be a bellwether for that. Who knows? Is that a burp? Okay, yeah. On that note, we'll call it covered. There's details here if you want to go through them. But I feel good leaving it there. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how these midterms shake out. I'm hoping to see more Democratic moves. I will say it, at least in this sense. There's a part of me that goes, yeah, it's nice to see Democrats play the game, and not lay down. But then also, it sucks because this is the best that can be done, I guess, from this Democratic Party as a whole. They still cannot sell you on anything other than Trump is bad, and we gotta make things more affordable, y'all. We gotta get on that. Nothing else, everything else is still the Republican light package that when anyone, it doesn't matter what part of the aisle you're on, you're going to look at that shit and go, ew, this is gross. I don't actually want this. I just hate Donald Trump and I hate what's going on so much that maybe I pick you. That is not a good option. And you could be sold a better option. Democrats could do better for us and they just don't want to. So yeah, that sucks balls. I guess that's the note I wanted to leave it on. Yeah, balls. No, I don't know. That's it. That was the episode. If you'd like to help out, support the effort, I do have a Patreon. Patreon.com/ZegaNews. Become a newsie today. Doing the roll call soon. May is coming up. New May, new month. Roll call, shout you out, plug a project if you like. You get access to old episodes, extra stuff, little notes and stuff. Whatever. It's a tip jar. So I appreciate everyone who is a part of that. Shout out to my newsies. But for you to hit me up, IsaiahNews1@gmail.com. Feel free to follow me or the podcast on any of the socials. Subscribe to the YouTube, follow on TikTok, follow on Spotify, follow on Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to listen. Leave a like, leave a cool comment. Sharing is caring. 5 stars on Spotify. 5 stars on Apple Podcasts are always appreciated. But if you don't do that, that's okay. You can skip it. Fine by me. I really just appreciate you hanging out, letting me yap at you about my day, about my take on the news, about what's going on. Just trying to talk about this shit to the best of my friggin' ability. Thank you. Thank you kindly. So, hopefully I see you soon for some more good news. I love ya. Bye-bye. Mwah.